So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alex Benjamin. I'm the vice chairman here at the European Jewish Association in Brussels. And thank you for joining this briefing this evening. I'm still letting people in if I appear a bit distracted, so my apologies. So it's clear that it was an unprecedented Saturday, and for many of us, it feels like we're in the eye of a storm. We're waiting for what comes next. And for those of you who aren't aware yet, Israel is officially on a war footing. Now, there are many. Sorry, once again, I would ask people to mute themselves, please. Mr. Ilborg, could I ask?
Yes, sorry, that was sound coming in. That's been turned off.
Thank you. So as I was saying, there are many questions as we meet this evening from Israelis asking how this could have happened. 50 years almost to the day since the beginning of a Yom Kippur war. From diaspora Jews such as myself questioning old certainties about Israel that no longer feel so certain. And of course, from you journalists, the chroniclers of our time. I'm just going to establish a couple of house rules before I hand over to my colleague, Tal Rabina. I'll be opening the group chat in a second. I would ask you that if you do have any questions, to put those questions initially in the group chat. What I mean by that is that it'll put a bit of order. Also, I see some of you, for instance, somebody's just popped up there where it says iPhone on the screen. We obviously don't know. We obviously don't know who a lot of you are just by your phone identifications or your phone numbers. So in the group chat, if you can kindly put your name and your outlet for any questions you may have, that would be extremely useful. Now, with that said, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Tal Rabina, who is the head of our Israel office, also our director of strategy, who will introduce our guests. Tal, of course, is based in Israel. Tal, after that brief introduction, I'm handing over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. With your permission, just one more remark, kind of a technically one. At this hour, the Hamas are used to send some gifts, unfortunately, in rockets. So if, God forbid, we are going to have some rockets throughout this Zoom conference, whether where I'm staying or one of our guests, please A, bear with us. B, Alex, please stay there for the few minutes. Guys, חבר'ה בעברית, אתם צריכים להיות, יעל, שימו על מיוט, שומעים אתכם. Sorry, I was just talking with the folks down at Sderot and the kibbutzim, and we will start with them in a minute. I was kicked out of the Zoom, so I couldn't hear Alex, but just to make sure that you know our guests. So we have Professor Kobi Michael, who is a senior researcher at INSS and an editor-in-chief of the Strategic Assessment. He is expert on the Palestinian issues and Israel multi-front challenges. We will have with us, everything is in this Zoom, and I apologize in advance, everything is under the circumstances that are developing. So we hope to have Lieutenant Masha Michelson, Deputy Head of Israel Defense Force International Press Department. And we have a few friends, some of them we already heard from down the south, with the great help of Gitit Butera, whom we thank very, very much for their effort of the media. It's the Hot Media Center. All I can just say, big help to you guys. It's really amazing the way you are showing the resilience. Really, in Hebrew we say kol hakavod. You know, we are all media people here, and I was wondering how can we tell you what's going on without getting into cliches, without getting into too graphic descriptions, describing whatever it is. And unfortunately, just a minute before I got in the Zoom, I got the way to tell you what's going on in just one example. Some of you, I see some familiar faces here. Some of you know Nir from our team. He is now recruited and he's in the reserve down south. And just a few minutes ago, he was telling me about a commander of his battalion that came there. And it turns out the guy lost his kid, 15 years old kid, yesterday in the village of Yachini. And they asked him, Hajbi, how come? What are you doing here? So he said that, well, the kid is gone and there is no way to have a funeral at the coming days. So at least I can come and help fight those terrorists. Guys, this is in one example, the story, if you would like, the framework of this situation. We got hit very hard. Numbers keep going up. We are talking now about approximately, and all figures are approximately because we don't really know, approximately 600 casualties, 2,156 injured. From the casualties, they just released names of 44 soldiers and 34 officers in the police. Approximately 100 kids, women, young soldiers and elderly who were kidnapped to Gaza. So far we had 5,000 rockets. When the Hamas declared this number, I was sure that they are just showing off, but unfortunately, these apparently are the numbers, and they are still coming. They say that not less than 1,000 Hamas people and other organizations, other proxies like Islamic Jihad, got into Israel. This is no longer a terror organization. This is a terror army. Works more like ISIS. And this is the situation right now. I would like, before any more details, to see, Gitit, can we come up with any of your friends at Sderot? Is anyone there able to speak with us?
I am not from Sderot, but I am from one of the kibbutzim in the Gaza envelope area.
I will be more than glad to hear you. If you can just present yourself and tell us where do you live.
Yes, my name is Adele Raymer. I live on Kibbutz Nerim, which is 2 kilometers. My mic keeps going off for some reason.
We hear you, please.
My name is Adele Raymer. I live 2 kilometers from the border with the Gaza Strip, south of Sderot.
And what story you have, Adele, in yesterday about the terror?
I don't know if I can do this. My mic keeps popping out.
Go ahead, Adele. We want to hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please
okay.
go on.
So yesterday morning at about 6:30 in the morning, we started getting a very heavy barrage of rockets. And we went into the safe room. This happens sometimes, all too often, but but it was an especially unprecedented heavy barrage. And in foresight, looking back at it, I believe it was in order to have cover for this massive infiltration that you were just told about. This is just my assumption. I am a retired English teacher. Within an hour, we were told to be in our safe rooms, to lock ourselves, to close our windows, lock the shades, lock the doors, and go into our safe rooms and lock them, because there were terrorists in the kibbutz. It took the army between 7 to 8 hours to get to us because they were so overwhelmed. There were like 20 communities that were infiltrated. So we were on our own for the first 7-8 hours. And at one point, I'm a widow, so I live alone, but my youngest son just happened to be visiting me. And thank God, so he was in the safe room with me and holding on to the door, to the handle of the door, in case terrorists infiltrated. And they did try and break into my house. We weren't allowed to leave the safe room at all. Even we weren't supposed to go to the bathroom. I snuck out twice because 8 hours, I just could not. And one of the times that I went out, I saw that the slats on my window had been busted. So terrorists tried to infiltrate into my house. My son, who understands a little bit of Arabic, had said that we heard Arabic voices outside. And he said that they said in Arabic, one was calling to the other saying, no, go away from there. So for some reason, providence or dumb luck, they did not infiltrate into my house. They did sadly infiltrate into other houses. They infiltrated into my son-in-law's house where my 3 granddaughters were. Thank God he had his weapon with him. He's a first responder and has a rifle. And he killed 2 of the terrorists. And when the army came, by the time the army came, within 7-8 hours, 2 of our people had been killed, murdered in their houses. Another 5 people are missing. We don't know what has happened to them, if they are dead, if they are captive in Gaza. We do not know. And these are like grandmothers and young, like they're not soldiers, these are civilians. Finally, the army came at about 3 and they went around the kibbutz. They killed 9 terrorists within the kibbutz. And this is a small community. We're about 450 people in our community. So they killed 9 of them. And then house by house, they started evacuating us to a central area where they could have us all in one place so that they could keep us safe. So the army circled us completely, and we were there. A few hours later, they divided us up again into houses that were safe, that are rocket proof, because we were getting rockets also, in addition to the infiltration. And, you know, when a community is infiltrated, you do not know how many infiltrators there are. They knew how many they killed. They didn't know if there were any left. So they were being very careful. They divided us up into different safe structures and surrounded all of the safe structures. We spent the night there. And about 1 o'clock this morning, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we were told to go back to our homes quickly pack a bag, and we would be notified when to come out to get into buses and be evacuated. And I'm being evacuated now with many people from my kibbutz. There are three bus loads going down to the city of Eilat to get us out of harm's way. So that's my story of the past.
Thank you very much, Adele. I understand we have Neria and Yael. Where are you from? Can you please unmute yourself? Neria.
Hi, can you hear me?
I was born in the States. I was in a Zionist youth movement and spent a year in Israel after my
Adele,
and
Can you hear me?
went back to the States. That was in 1973, and October 73. There were,
Adele, we cannot really hear you
and I
very
said,
good. Adele, we cannot really hear you.
"What am I
very
doing?"
good. So we cannot really hear you very good. So
Sorry.
we cannot really hear you very good because maybe the place your bus is going. So we'd like to hear Neria for a second. Neria, where are you from?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we do hear you very good.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Neria Davidi. I'm 25 years old. I live in Sderot for all of my life. For now, you can't see me good because we don't have any electricity fans like the morning. And now we are taking like some lights that we bought in chain with batteries and put it all over the house and candles and stuff. So I'm gonna tell you what happened to me. So what happened is I asked my little sister to get out because she understands English. She was very smart and I don't want her to hear everything. So what's happened is basically we woke up somewhere in 6 in the morning in a Saturday. It was a holiday, a Jewish holiday. So my aunts and cousins and grandma and my brother and his new bride, he just got married, came to our house. It is my father's birthday. So we did like a little celebration and we had a lot of family here. In the evening, my sister got here like late in the night with her friends. They sat here, talked, and then like in 4 in the morning, they decided to go everyone to their houses, which was discovered to be the greatest decision of their life, because if they were going like a little bit late, we don't know what could happen to them. One of their friends' brother got killed. He's in the soldier in
Okay, we'll say goodbye for a few minutes from our friends from Sderot. There are rockets over there. When they shouting Tseva Adom, it means red color, which is the siren over there. So those of you who are talking with us from the shelters, please stay there. Those of you who are outside, please come to a safe place. Is Lieutenant Masha Michelson with us already?
Yes, hello.
Hi, Masha. So we have Lieutenant Masha Michelson, Deputy Head of Israel Defense Forces International Press Department. Masha, as we just heard, they keep on launching rockets at us. Can you please brief us what is going on in the different fronts?
Yes, I think, as you said, we're facing an unprecedented attack on Israel. Yesterday at 6:30 in the morning, we saw Palestinian Hamas terrorists invading Israel on land, through the sea, and through the air in paragliders. And they have been targeting these civilian communities, capturing, killing, and kidnapping women, children, elderly people. There's been a 97-year-old elderly woman who was kidnapped into the Gaza Strip. And this is the deadliest attack on Israel since the formation of the state. So it's a hard time.
Do we have official numbers? Do we have official?
We do not have official numbers that we can comment right now. What I can say is, as of now, we have 44 IDF casualties that were confirmed. Unfortunately, those are people who have fallen during battles in those communities, because the IDF deployed both reservists and mandatory servicemen and women to those communities to fight those terrorists, to get them off Israeli ground, and to get the communities back to safety and back to stability. There is fighting still going on among the 32 initial infiltration points along the border. There is fighting still going on in around 10 points, and we're fighting to get the Hamas terrorists off Israeli soil.
Just a minute. I want to make it clear. You are talking about Hamas terrorists. They are still wandering around the Moshavim, Kibbutzim, the villages and Kibbutzim of Israel within the Israeli territory?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There are special forces who are trained to deal with such situations, both when there is hostages in those places that are being held captive, and when there are terrorists hiding in people's houses. And we're trying to clear the territory as thoroughly and as quickly as possible to get the people back to their daily lives. The main mission of the IDF currently is getting the South back to normal, back to security. While that's going on, the IDF Air Force is striking since yesterday in Gaza. We have struck over 500 targets in the Gaza Strip, along with 100 strikes from UAVs that are circling around the border between Gaza and Israel, and are targeting any Hamas terrorist who is attempting to cross into Israel since this attack started. We are watching all arenas. We are keeping our eyes open towards the north and towards Judea and Samaria to see that we do not get a multi-front conflict here. We see Hamas calling to Hezbollah, calling to Israeli Arabs, calling to Palestinians living in Judea and Samaria to join the fighting. And Hamas has been telling over the years, over and over again, their mission is to eliminate the state of Israel. Their mission is to kill Jewish people. And those horrible videos that are going around online, we see how they act, we see how they treat their prisoners that they've taken. And Hamas has shown their true face to the world. And it's a horrible, horrible thing to witness. The IDF is doing everything in our power to clear the south of Israel from terrorists as fast as possible. And all plausible military options are being presented by our Chief of Staff to the Security Cabinet to calculate our next steps very carefully, because this unprecedented attack calls for an unprecedented response.
I suggest, since we don't know for how long you will be able to stay with us,
Yes.
Alex, if you please go over the chat and just ask the journalist who has questions to Masha to address their questions, so we're sure we get some answers before she will have to go to other missions.
Okay, thank you, Tab. So the first question comes from Moshe Appelblatt at the Brussels Times. Moshe, do you want to unmute yourself? And I'm not going to hang around too long. If people don't mute themselves, then I'll just ask the question.
Let's just pass on. So
okay. So the question.
Okay, I'm here now.
Okay, Moshe.
Okay,
thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. I'm here in Haifa, not in Brussels this time. And well, maybe I first would like to take the opportunity to ask Masha a question concerning, let's say, the information from the army, from the spokesperson service. For example, yesterday we got the impression that the government tried to say to somehow to hide or censor those terrible videos about the hostage taken by Hamas. Is that true? That's one question. But of course, the much bigger question is, how could this happen? And I understand that I think that Dr. Kobi Michal already wrote today that this was a colossal both intelligence and operational failure. How was it not discovered those about 1,000 terrorists who infiltrated Israel? And when they entered Israel, why were they not met by any resistance? Why were there no Israeli troops in the whole region? Where were they at that point? And we also heard from the people, from the woman from the Kibbutz Nirim, that it took, and that's very surprising, I think, 7 to 8 hours for soldiers to arrive to rescue them. And she was a bit, she explained it, okay, they had to go to so many places, of course, but still it's unbelievable, I think. And you wonder, why did it take so long time for the army to come and fight the terrorists? You get the impression there was no military preparedness at all, and that's exactly what we journalists and other people have warned would happen, I mean, because of the internal crisis in Israel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Sorry, Tal, just very briefly, because I just before...
If you have some more questions to Masha, let's just maybe get them together so she'll be able to answer them all.
Indeed. So with that, a very, very important question from Daniel Mosseri at Libero regarding the hostages, in particular, making reference to the former kidnapping of Gilad Shalit. Daniel, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, of course. Thank you for this. I remember the great emotional mobilization of Israel when Gilad Shalit was in the hands of Hamas in Gaza, and he was only one person, he was one soldier. Now you have, I don't know if the number is correct, about or over 100 people kidnapped civilians in Gaza. How will it be possible to set them free? And my question is, do strategists in the Israeli government even have a plan as such a massive number of kidnapped people was ever considered, or is this just like, I don't know, a nightmare? Thank you. I also wanted to know, incidentally, if it is correct that 7 kibbutzim are still in the hands of the terrorists, if you can confirm this. Thank you again.
So with that, Tal, I'll hand back to you, and then as soon as those 2 questions are done, to keep things fresh, and then I've got some more questions as and when you're ready, sir.
Thank you. Masha, please go ahead.
So I'll answer in order. There is the assumption that 7 places are in the hands of terrorists is incorrect. To say that they're in the hands of terrorists is implying that there is no military presence there, and it's not true. There are fights going on. There is no place where it's decidedly in the hands of Hamas, and special units, people that have been trained for this situation, are fighting Hamas terrorists in several places surrounding, the Gaza Strip, to regain control. So that's that. Regarding the hostages and the kidnapped individuals within the Gaza Strip, I think the word nightmare is correct. And I will leave the strategy to return them up to the decision of the government and the security cabinet. They are presented with multiple options. The IDF is presenting military options for action, but I'm sure they're reviewing other courses of action. So I would not presume to speak on behalf of government strategists who are making those decisions. The IDF is prepared to execute the orders that we are given once a decision is made. And the question regarding how it happened and how long it took for the forces to get them are important questions. They are questions that need to be asked and need to be answered, but for them to be answered thoroughly, calmly, and without bias, we need to get the war over with. We need to get security back to the south. We need to get Israel back to safety. Once it is safe and the war is over, I'm sure the IDF will investigate thoroughly what happened there. What I can tell you is what I only assume is maybe part of the reason is that this attack happened on a holiday and not a lot of forces were left in the division. So bringing people back to an area that is already infiltrated by terrorists is dangerous and complicated, and we want to do our job as efficiently as possible without risking more lives than necessary, unfortunately. And so that's what I have to say from my personal assumption, but this is no formal statement by the IDF, and I'm sure those will be made later on when we have the security situation handled.
Masha, there are 3 questions I see here on our chat. One is it true that 7 kibbutzim are still in the hands of Hamas? Maybe you can elaborate.
Said that isn't true. Saying that an area is in the hands of Hamas is implying that there is no military presence there, and this is absolutely not true. The IDF is present at every point where there are terrorists, and we are fighting them to get control of the south.
Another question from Politico. Does Israel plan to invade Gaza by land?
The IDF is preparing for all military options, but the decision eventually will be up to the Security Cabinet.
And another question I see here, this journalist, I cannot see the name here, recognized the fact that in the morning we had some clashes up north and Mount Dov. Mortars were launched. What is the situation in the northern front, and are you guys ready for multi-front events?
The IDF is ready for a multi-front event, and we have seen events up north this morning. The northern front is contained, and when I say that hundreds of thousands of reservists have been called to duty yesterday and today, it's not only to the south. The 91st Division is deployed with reservists to make sure that if we are facing a threat from north, we are ready for it and we can face it.
I see here a question from Yakov from Sweden. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, Jacob Illeborg, writing for The Independent, actually from Denmark, but
Denmark,
okay.
sorry.
Now, I have. Do we know anything about how the Iron Dome and the David Sling has been holding up in terms of these thousands of rockets coming in?
They've been holding up pretty well. We've always said that there is no airtight defense, and the Israeli public has been used to smaller calibers of attacks, and the Hamas is trying to overwhelm our system and to saturate the air defense by firing multiple barrages of rockets at once and firing them into multiple locations. But the stability of the high percentage of interceptions that are done successfully as of now is stable, and it keeps being that way. We do encourage people to comply with the instructions of the Home Front Command because there is no foolproof solution, and we have seen rockets that have succeeded to get through. There have been direct hits yesterday in Ashkelon, and also when there is an interception that is successful, there is still metal debris that will eventually hit the ground, which is why it is crucial to run to the safe rooms, as unfortunately you have seen people on Zoom with us doing today.
Alex?
Yeah, thank you, Tal. Earlier on, you were saying that this was unprecedented, and we all agree it is. Is there anything, just before I get to another question, that compares to this in Israeli history, or does this stand alone as a unique and awful act from Israel's perspective? And then there was a question, of course, from Didier Lauras at Agence France Presse. Didier, can you unmute yourself, sir, and ask your question?
Yes, hi, can you hear me well?
We can hear you.
Thanks very much for giving me the floor. I'd like to know how much you think today this attack has been prepared. Obviously, there's a lot of coordination necessary for this to succeed the way it succeeded in a way. Sorry to use this term. So how long do you think this has been prepared, and how much has been coordinated? And I guess, the coming question with it is how much, pretty obviously or not, Iran is behind it in terms of this very attack, not just, long-term cooperation and help and financing of Hamas and everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could you repeat the first question, please? Not the French reporter, the one before him.
Sorry. So the first question briefly was how does this how does Saturday compare in Israeli historical terms, in terms of, I mean, we're calling it unprecedented, but taking things into consideration, where would you place this?
Yeah. So this is the deadliest attack on Israel since the formation of the state. There's no doubt in that. There are hundreds of injured people, hundreds of casualties, people that have lost their lives, lost their loved ones, and it is a horrible, horrible time in our country. I don't know right now how long was Hamas preparing for this attack. I assume it was pre-planned enough in advance for it to be sudden and thorough. We see Iranian guidance everywhere. Those journalists who have met with us a little over a month ago when we were briefing you around Israel will remember that we said that Iran is channeling money into Gaza regularly. We don't have specific information about Iranian either direction or instruction for this specific attack, but it's safe to assume that they had some hand in assisting it.
Thank you. And
one last question, and then unfortunately I will have to leave.
So since I promise you to be short in time, and I know you are so busy, we'll let you go for now. If you have any opportunity to come back, we will appreciate. Of course, we know you are very, very busy. Lieutenant Masha Michelson, thank you so much for clarifying things. And
thank you.
Thank you so much. And after getting this background, I would like to go to Professor Kobi Michael. After we heard the people from Sderot, we got some sense of what is going on from the IDF. Professor Michael, could you please elaborate of the significance of this event we are in the beginning of?
Good evening. There is no place to make any sort of camouflage or to use nice words or maybe to rephrase things. We are talking about a horrible event. This is a sort of, I would say, a very significant crisis that should be investigated later on. Now we have to focus on some other things, but we are talking about a huge failure in the Israeli side and a huge achievement for Hamas. Here, at least since yesterday, I have two major questions that I still have no good answers to, but I have some, at least initial thoughts. The first question that I was asking myself was, what is actually the strategic purpose of Hamas by launching such an operation? You know that in order to launch such an operation, you have to do a lot of preparations, planning, coordination, and you have to have a very, very meaningful, significant, essential strategic prospect or objective that you are seeking to achieve, because Hamas knows pretty well that the price tag of such an operation will be very high. So I was asking myself, what is actually the strategic aim of Hamas in this operation? And the second question that I was asking myself, why yesterday? I mean, what happened yesterday that they choose yesterday to launch the operation? And I would like to introduce a sort of a thesis, although it's an initial thesis, but I think that I have some good, I would say, some good insights with regard to this thesis, and I would like to share it with you. I assume that Hamas wouldn't have dared to launch such an operation without having a very, I would say, reliable and serious policy insurance. And I think that they got a sort of policy insurance or insurance policy from Hezbollah and from Iran. we have to understand that when we are talking about Hamas, Hamas is not only a Palestinian player in the Palestinian arena. Hamas is part of the resistance axis or the resistance camp, which is led by Iran, composed by Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, and some other Iranian proxies all over the broader Middle East. And Hamas has a very clear strategy, which corresponds with the Iranian strategy, both strategies based on the organizing rationale of multi-front campaign or multi-front conflict. And I assume that Hamas assumed that by launching this operation, in the moment that they understood as the right moment, they will be able to recruit or to operate the other fronts as well. And when I'm talking about the other fronts, I'm talking about the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the domestic front here in Israel, I mean Arab citizens of Israel, and South Lebanon, and maybe even beyond of that, South Syria, West Iraq, maybe Yemen, the Houthis. And this is something that the Iranians and Hamas have in common. This is the ultimate, I would say, strategy for Hamas and for Iran to collapse the Zionist project, the State of Israel. And I assume that Hamas believes that due to the internal domestic constraints of Israel, and I mean the crisis that we are going through in the last almost year, Israel will be parallel, or Israel will not be able to retaliate freely or in a very aggressive manner. And therefore, taking into consideration that yesterday was a Simchat Torah, which is a Jewish holiday, and I assume that they collected the intel and they understood that the IDF is not in full presence during the holiday. They decided to do it yesterday, and unfortunately, they found us unready. And I remain politically correct when I say unready. So I think that what happened yesterday is not less than a game changer. And Israel cannot tolerate it. I mean, there is no doubt that Israel cannot tolerate it, because it's not only an issue between Hamas and Israel. Israel knows and understands pretty well that all the players around are watching us, and they are waiting to the right moment. And if Israel will not be determined enough, if Israel will not be aggressive enough, and if Israel will not be able to decide Hamas, then Israel actually opens by its hands additional fronts. And this is the reason that Israel should and must decide Hamas. And this is, by the way, at least according to my understanding, one of the reasons that the Israeli cabinet, the Israeli government declared a state of war. For those of us who are not so familiar with the Israeli history, this is the first time since 1973 that the state of Israel declares a state of war. Israel didn't declare a state of war in 1982, neither in 2006. And the declaration of war has a very significant meaning, not only with regard to international law, but also with regard to the domestic law, also with regard to the cognitive dimension, and with regard to the operational dimension. And if the state of Israel is in a state of war vis-a-vis Hamas, it means that Israel will do things that it didn't or has not done since 2009. And I think that Israel understands pretty well that the only outcome that can be in this war is a full decisiveness of Hamas. And Hamas cannot return to be the same Hamas that we know until today. And Hamas must be removed as an obstacle, as a significant and influential player. And the equation in front of the Israeli eyes is strong Hamas means stronger Iran and more influential Iran in the Palestinian arena. And therefore, by defeating Hamas and by weakening Hamas, we are weakening Iran, and we have to weaken Iran. Otherwise, we are going to find ourselves in a much more complicated reality. And therefore, I think that Israel has to reorganize itself. I think that it will take another day or two to regain full control over the entire Israeli territories along the border with the Gaza Strip. During this time, Israel will continue attacking Hamas in the Gaza Strip, but after regaining control and full control over the Israeli territories, Israel will prepare itself to launch an attack, a very severe attack, that Hamas will not be able to tackle. There will be a price, and the price tag will be high for both sides, by the way, but there is no any other option for Israel. We are in a sort of a strategic stalemate, and we have to come out from this stalemate, and this is the only way to come out from this stalemate. And as I said before, not only vis-a-vis Hamas, but vis-a-vis the other players here in the region as well. Israel looks very carefully to the north, towards Hezbollah, but not only towards Hezbollah. And I think that we have to be very sensitive and very aware to our domestic arena as well, because we still remember what happened in May 21 with some hundreds or maybe some few thousands of Arab citizens of Israel in the mixed cities, and we have to prepare ourselves to be ready, because it cannot be tackled in the way that it was tackled in May 21. And this is a very sensitive arena. The domestic arena in Israel is a very sensitive arena. And I would like you to be very aware to the cognitive or to the consciousness of Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and some of the radical groups among the Arab citizens of Israel. They are in the consciousness of the Islamic glory. They believe that they have reached to the moment that they are able to collapse the state of Israel.
Kobi, there are a few questions to you
Sure.
regarding these very topics. Alex, could you please get us some of the questions to Kobi?
Certainly, Kobi. Just very, very briefly, on a point of clarification, one of the journalists was asking, it was actually Daniel again, was asking, you mentioned Israel is ready to do things it hasn't done since 2009. Can you just jog our memories as to what happened in 2009?
Yes, 2009 was actually the first military operation CAS-led against Hamas. It began in December 2008 during Olmert government, Prime Minister Olmert, and it ended in January 2009. And then we had another operation in 2012, 2014, 2018, 2021, 2022, and 2023. And the organizing rationale of all of these campaigns, of all of these military campaigns, was the idea of reaching to an arrangement with Hamas to reach calm. This was the Israeli strategy, to keep Hamas as an effective ruler of the Gaza Strip on the one hand, the third and weakened military on the other hand. And Israel believed that this will be the most suitable way to deal with the Gaza Strip, to deal with Hamas. and the Egyptians, the Qatarian, played a very significant role during all of these years, during all of the campaigns. They were the mediators, and I think each campaign was almost the same, be it longer or shorter, but the idea was to reach an arrangement with Hamas. Israel will provide Hamas with some economic benefits, and Hamas will provide Israel with calm. Unfortunately, at least personally, since 2018, and those of you who heard me before, I thought that this is a wrong strategy. And I thought that Israel has to change the rules of the game vis-a-vis Hamas, because Hamas began developing its dual strategy, in the sense that on the one hand, they kept calm on the Gaza Strip in order to enable the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, the improvement of the humanitarian situation, the economy, and this was a sort of an umbrella for fortifying and rebuilding their military capacities and to prepare themselves to the D-Day, which came yesterday. And in the very same time, while keeping calm in the Gaza Strip, they ignited the West Bank from the Gaza Strip and from abroad, Saleh al-Arouri, for an example, from Turkey and later on from Beirut. And the idea that Hamas is, on the one hand, keeping calm in the Gaza Strip, and in the other hand, feeding and fueling the terror campaign in the West Bank, mainly in the last year and a half, it's something that I think cannot be tolerated by Israel. The idea that Saleh al-Arouri from abroad challenges Israel and makes all the efforts in order to build the terror infrastructure in the West Bank, cooperates with Iran in order to smuggle weapons and money from Lebanon through Syria, Jordan, to the northern districts of the West Bank, paying money for terrorists and encouraging terrorists, and actually, as I said before, fueling the terror campaign. When we are in the very same time, we are providing the Hamas with working permits for workers, Palestinian workers from the Gaza Strip, and we provide them with water and electricity and fuel, and we open the passes, and we enable them to make export and import. This is something that cannot be tolerated. And I think that now everybody understands that Israel must shift its strategy, and a new game should be here in town vis-a-vis Hamas.
I would just before the next question, Alex, there are reports of street fights right now with terrorists within some of the kibbutzim. And unfortunately, it's as severe as they had to stop evacuating civilians, as we heard from Adele at the beginning of this Zoom. Please go ahead with some more questions for Kobi.
And the reported number of casualties now is at least 650.
Thank you, Kobi, for that very sobering statistic. Elliot Chapman from Jane's Defense had a question regarding what does the minimum force of an operation to sufficiently degrade Hamas look like? And so that's part one. So what does minimum force to really take out Hamas in a meaningful way, what does that look like? And linked to that question, how can from Mr. Leonard Ornstein, he's asking how can the IDF operate in or on Gaza if there are so many Israeli hostages in danger in there? How do you see this challenge, Kobi?
First of all, with regard to the first question, I would say that it depends on the military plan that will be. The idea is to regain control over the Gaza Strip. It doesn't mean that we have to be in any part or any corner of the Gaza Strip in order to gain control or to have control territorially over the Gaza Strip, okay? But we have to be there in the Gaza Strip, and I think that it's something that cannot be less than 2 divisions, armored divisions, heavy divisions, and of course Air Force, artillery, and the backing of the Navy. But we have to understand that this is not going to be a 6-day war, okay? We are going to a very long journey. We will need several weeks in order to dismantle the military infrastructure of Hamas, and then we will need some further months in order to assure control over the territory and to prepare the Gaza Strip for an alternative to Hamas. It doesn't mean that Israel will run the daily life of the 2 million Palestinians there. It doesn't mean that Israel will renew the military regime that we used to know. It doesn't mean that Israel will be there on the Gazan soil, okay, by continuing presence. It means that Israel will be able militarily to control the Gaza Strip and to prevent Hamas, or what will remain from Hamas, to recover itself, okay? And I'm talking about a very long operation. I mean, it's not, as I said before, the 6-day war. And the Israeli public, I think, begins absorbing or internalizing the idea. And this is part of the responsibility of the Israeli leadership to prepare the Israeli public for this long journey. And it is not going to be a piece of cake. It's going to be a difficult journey. And as I said, there will be a price tag. There will be casualties. It will harm our routine of life, but we have no other option. And at the end of the day, Israel will be with the upper hand. I have no doubt about it, because the other option is that Israel will not be here at all. So we will be with the upper hand at the end of the day, but it's going to be a long journey. With regard to the second question, with all the sorrow, with all the pain, and I think that the hearts of all of us is, I would say, deeply hearted, this cannot be the first priority of Israel, the hostage issue. Israel cannot allow itself to begin negotiating with Hamas now about the hostages. Israel is not with the upper hand right now, and in order to negotiate, and I'm not sure the negotiation will be the ultimate solution. I'm not sure at all. Maybe a rescue operation will be the ultimate solution, but not in this phase. Israel will reach to the hostage issue only when it will be with the upper hand and when Hamas will be defeated and weak, not a second before. Otherwise, there is going to be a huge mess here. With all the sorrow, at least this is my opinion, okay? My professional opinion. Israel will do whatever is necessary to do in order to prepare itself to deal effectively with the hostage issue. I mean, now Brigadier General in reserve, Gal Hirsch, was appointed by Prime Minister Netanyahu to lead the treatment in this issue, and I assume that Israel will devote a very significant intelligence effort in order to collect information. I think that Israel will make operational preparations. I think that Israel will do some other things as well with some other players, be it the German, the Egyptians, I don't know, the Qatarians, maybe the Saudis, but Israel will not negotiate with Hamas until we will be with the upper hand and Hamas will be defeated.
Okay,
Otherwise,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Otherwise, the price will be not reasonable.
You're answering a lot of the question, and I would like to address you a question of I will tell you in a minute. Anna Van Densky is writing us. So Borel said, regional stability must be preserved. How stability can be achieved without defeating of Hamas? I'm asking you this question because in Israel, and maybe some of our colleagues abroad as well, are very worried about what we call the sand clock. What is the credit? How long does the West will allow Israel to act? Because as we all know, the pressure is coming, and sometimes very harshly.
Yes.
What is your assessment?
First of all, we have to understand that Hamas is the destabilizer factor and player here in the entire region, not only in the Palestinian arena. Hamas is the most severe threat and danger for the Palestinian Authority and for stability. And we have to understand that Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah cannot tolerate the idea of the normalization process with Saudi Arabia and with the other Arab countries here in the region. This is something that goes just against their raison d'etre. And they will do whatever they can in order to sabotage it, and they will do whatever they can in order to spoil it. I mean, there are these spoilers. And therefore, we have to deal with Hamas, and we have to weaken Hamas to the level that Hamas will not be able to be a spoiler anymore or a threat. This is the first thing. The second thing is that talking about regional stability and international legitimacy, I think that everybody among you have to understand clearly the situation that Israel is in. The international legitimacy is very important for Israel. But now we are not dealing with another operation in the Gaza Strip, okay? Now we are not dealing with a terror campaign in the West Bank. Now we are dealing with an existential threat to the state of Israel. There will be international legitimacy. There will not be international legitimacy. The state of Israel will do what it must do. And I think that Israel will have the American support. And I take into consideration the probability that the battery of legitimacy, the battery of international legitimacy will be empty or close to empty in 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. It doesn't mean that under the current circumstances, Israel has to stop what it must do vis-a-vis Hamas in the Gaza Strip. This is a different story. We are in a different story. What happened yesterday is not less than a strategic catastrophe. This is not less than a strategic, I would say, upheaval here in the region and with regard to the state of Israel. And this is something that Israel will have to work very hard and in a very determined manner in order to fix it. And we will remain with the scare, and we will remain with the wounds for a very, very long period of time. But we will remain here as a viable democratic state here in the region, And if we have to fight even without international legitimacy, it will be done.
With your permission, Alex, there is a question about a present who is absent. I think it's the first Zoom we hosted you, and you still did not say the name Abu Mazen.
Yes, Abu Mazen for a very long period of time is irrelevant. Actually, there was a sort of a turning point, a very positive turning point, after the IDF operation in Jenin in last July, when Abu Mazen finally understood that he cannot continue riding on the back of the tiger, okay, on the back of Hamas and the Palestinian terrorism, because everything at the end of the day will go against him and the stability of the Palestinian Authority, and therefore he changed course. And we saw the Palestinian security apparatuses that are trying to do a better job. Unfortunately, not such successful job, but at least they tried to change a course. But Abu Mazen is much weaker than Hamas. He is challenged by Hamas in the West Bank. Hamas perceives itself as an alternative to Abu Mazen, to the Fatah, and to the Palestinian Authority. And Hamas seeks to undermine the stability of the Palestinian Authority, and they have a great partner in this regard, which is Iran. Okay, the Palestinian Authority should be a sort of a component in the new regional architecture based on the normalization process between Israel and Saudi Arabia, based on Abraham Accords and so on and so forth. Fortunately, the Palestinian leadership was wise enough to understand the huge strategic mistake that they did in 2020 with regard to the Abraham Accord when they rejected the Accords. Now they understood that it will be much more preferable for them to ride on the wagon and to see what they can exert, what they can get from this normalization process. But eventually they lost their veto power. And I think that if we want to stabilize the region based on new regional architecture, we must remove Hamas, because Hamas is the spoiler, as I said before. And Hamas will do all the efforts in order to destabilize the Palestinian Authority and to prevent the Palestinian Authority from being a component or part in the new regional architecture. And Hamas and Iran will do what is ever necessary in their eyes, including spilling Palestinian blood in order to embarrass the Saudis and to prevent them to make any sort of advance or progress in the normalization process with Israel. I mean, this is their goal. This is their strategic goal. We are talking here about a hegemony, or about a competition for hegemony between titans, between Iran and Saudi Arabia, between the resistance axis and the pragmatic Sunni Arab axis, okay? And this is something that goes back to the Arab upheaval, or so-called Arab Spring, and what we see in the broader context of the Middle East. We are in a very serious battle for hegemony, influence, and unfortunately, Hamas, which is part of the resistance axis, is, at least till this morning, was with the upper hand, and it cannot continue like that.
Kobe,
Alex?
yeah, just a couple more for you, Kobe, and then I'll hand back to Tal, because I believe we're going back to Sderot. So, Kobe, you just described earlier, you referred to it as strategic catastrophe. So a two-pronged question. Do you agree with the IDF spokesperson earlier on that any intelligence failures leading up to the attack should only be investigated after the war? Second part of that question is, do you believe that as a consequence, senior government positions such as the Prime Minister's Ben Gvir and even the Defense Minister Galant's their positions are looking perhaps tenuous right now. Indeed. And then, so those two, and then kind of linked to it, but specifically linked to Hamas, and then I'll hand back to Tal, is when it comes to Egypt, what would be the reaction in Egypt on the Egyptian border with Gaza of any incursion and game-changing incursion into Gaza? And subsequent to that, we had some unrest within the Arab minority in Israel not so long ago. In a heated campaign like that, can we expect some more of the scenes that we saw? And that concludes those questions. Kobe, thank you.
Yes, a very long list of questions. With regard to the intelligence failure, and by the way, it's not only intelligence failure, it's an operational failure and it's a political failure. I mean, it's a failure in all the levels. The failure crosses all the levels, unfortunately. And I'm very sad to say, but we have to be honest, first of all, with ourselves. This is the only way to tackle correctly the reality. We cannot camouflage things, as I said before. But I think that the investigation, the full investigation, cannot be done during the war itself. It should be done after the war, and it should be done in a very careful and very detailed and very responsible manner. And I think that the outcomes and the lessons will be very heartening outcomes and lessons for people and for the entities themselves, for the intelligence establishment itself. But I think that there is a need for a sort of operational investigation just now in order to find out what are the major flaws that we must fix right now, okay, in order to enable ourselves to be much more successful in the war. But the full investigation should be after the war. And yes, I think that people will pay with their heads. I have no doubt about it. This is earthquake, not less than earthquake. I mean, people are talking about Yom Kippur. I mean, it is much worse than Yom Kippur in my eyes, because in Yom Kippur,
just to elaborate, Yom Kippur means the 73 war.
Yes, we faced a war with very well occupied militaries, the Syrian and the Egyptian military, backed by a superpower, the USSR, okay? And we were not prepared good enough, and we had an intelligence failure, but the soldiers fought, okay? The soldiers fought in the front, and the homeland was protected by the soldiers in the front. What happened here is that the homeland became to be the front, the civilians themselves. I mean, the IDF failed to protect the people of Israel, the citizens of Israel. I mean, it has never happened in the Israeli history. I mean, this is something which is very, very serious. This is a huge crisis, a crisis of trust between the Israeli society and the security establishment. Fortunately, we have the cohesion and we have the resilience to get over, to recover ourselves and to hit back. But we will come back to that, and we will investigate it, and we will draw the right lessons, and without mercy. There will be no mercy in this regard, and heads will be turned down. I mean, I'm sure about it. Now, with regard to the Egyptians, I don't know if you are aware to the incident, the terror incident that was today in Egypt, where two Israelis and their Egyptian touring guide, were murdered by an Egyptian policeman. Unfortunately, despite the very good strategic relations between the countries, between Israel and Egypt, the relations of people to people are in a very problematic, I would say, situation. And the level of incitement in Egypt is I would say very dangerous. This is an outcome of incitement in Egypt. Although there is an improvement recently in the textbook, in the Egyptian textbooks, and we see that there is more tolerance towards Israel and more education for peace and so on and so forth. But generally speaking, Israel is not welcome in Egypt, okay, among the Egyptian people. But talking about the strategic level, I think that President Sisi, the Egyptian intelligence, the Egyptian security establishment, all of them understand pretty well what is the scale of Hamas threat on the stability of Egypt. We have to remember that Hamas is the Palestinian version of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt are banned, are out of the law for 5 years or so. And if there is something that President Sisi is afraid of, is the inspiration of Hamas on the supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and the idea of destabilization of security, internal domestic security in Egypt. And therefore, they have common interest with Israel to control the situation, and they understand pretty well, maybe much better than any other player here in the region with whom they have a business, okay? Who is Hamas exactly? And I think that Israel will be able to coordinate with Egypt and to recruit Egypt to pressure Hamas. But Israel will not rely on Egypt. Israel will not rely on anyone. Israel will rely on itself only. This is the main lesson that we have to come with after this catastrophe. And with regard to the last question that you asked about the Arab minority in Israel, we have to remember that 95 or even more than 95% of the Arab minority of Israel, they want to be part of the Israeli society, part of the Israeli economy. They are not Zionists, but they accept the idea of the state of Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people, and they want to have equal rights as citizens here in the state of Israel. But there is a very small minority, something like 3 to 5%, which is very radical, very extreme, very ideological from the religious point of view. And unfortunately, 3 to 5%, we are talking about big numbers. We are talking about several thousands of Arab citizens of Israel. And you don't need much more than a few hundreds here and there in order to ignite, to escalate the situation and to create a chaos or to deteriorate the situation to a chaotic situation. And therefore, we have to be very sensitive. We have to be very aware. I think that the Arab leadership has a very significant role here under these circumstances. Till now, I think that the Arab leadership actually demonstrated responsibility. I really hope that they will continue demonstrating responsibility. But we have to be aware, and we have to take into consideration that such a thing might happen, and we have to be ready for that.
Thank you so much, Professor Kobi Michael. Always enlightening, and really, it's making everything a bit more clearer when you are explaining what is going on. A lot of our friends has a deadline to reach, so I really thank you again, and I will go straight to Gitit Butera in Sderot. If you can unmute yourself. A lot of our friends here are eager to get some context in Sderot, in the kibbutzim, in the villages. Could you please tell us what the Sderot Media Center can help them, and how can they reach you, please? You're not muted. Unmute yourself. No, we cannot hear you. Maybe, okay, so Yael or Neria, can you please unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hi. So first of all, just tell us, we are getting some words that the government or the army or the police decided just now to distribute weapons to the residents of Sderot.
First of all, I really have to say that I'm very emotional right now. Like, I'm from Netiva Asara, and it's a small town near the border, in the north border. I'm sorry if I will have I'm getting emotional even from talking about the situation. So right now I'm not in my house. I'm not living in Sderot. I'm originally from Netiva Asara. We had a very difficult day yesterday, and 17 people, friends of mine and my family, were murdered yesterday.
17, 17?
17, 17.
Wow.
I've been in my home. It started in 6:30 from nowhere. And, you know, we are, as a citizen, we know to expect that. And I can tell about myself that I felt something that will going to happen. And we kind of known, but we didn't expect that to be that hard and that so big and horrible. It was like a nightmare that were continued for more than 10 hours. And yeah, we have like.
Yael, what do you see in
I'm
those
sorry.
10 hours? What do you see in those 10 hours? What do you hear outside the security room?
You hear us?
Do you hear
Yes,
us?
I have a bad connection sometimes. I'm sorry.
I was asking because a lot of my friends here are wondering, what do you hear throughout those 10 hours? What do you see?
Okay, so I will tell my own story. I've been sitting in my shelter, and you can hear everything. And when I'm saying everything, you can hear the alarm since 6:30 in the morning, non-stop, because they covered the Palestinian terrorists, and they came with I forgot the word, if someone can help me with they came from the air. They don't have airplanes or something like that. They don't need it. They have like
air gliders.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So they have they got their air blender, and they came across my home. We heard the propeller from the. We heard everything. We heard the propeller from the terrorists that came across my house. They came from the air, from the ground, from the sea, from everywhere, and they occupied my moshav for more than 4 hours. After, I think, I'm not kidding, 6 hours, we've been under Hamas. Thank God we didn't have any people that were kidnapped. There is 17 that's been murdered. Some of them were my friends. Some of them, I was a guide when I was 5 years ago. I was a guide in our community, and one of the children died yesterday. He was missing for more than 7 hours, and then they got to understand that he was murdered. There is so many people that I know. They were my neighbors. It was unbelievable because this situation never happened before. It was all around. My home is like kind of in the middle of the moshav, so we heard everything. We heard all the gunshots across the house from everywhere. We heard the booms because they Hamas cover the Palestinian terrorists by sending thousands of rockets in a minute, and we had to run to the shelter, and also we heard so many noises that we had to be we've been very concerned by some Palestinian guy to come to my house and kill my family. We are 7 people. My specific family, I'm the firstborn. I have 4 siblings, sisters and brothers, and I have a dog, and I have my parents. My dad has, thank God, some of the people didn't have guns to protect themselves or protect the house or protect the family. Thank God my dad had a gun. So we had also how to protect ourselves, and also we had our camera. We have a camera that goes all around across the house. So we kind of did a check out of the whole place to get it to tell the information to the people, because for more than 6 hours, the army didn't came. They had so many other places that were, I think, worst case than our moshav, that there wasn't enough army to come to our moshav. So people we have like people that's coming, forgot the word, I'm sorry. That's usually...
Ask in Hebrew. You can ask in Hebrew, Tal.
אוקיי, כאילו צוות חמ"ל חירום, צוות צחי כזה, שהם...
The emergency squad, the alert, the first responders.
Yes, and they are citizens as I do, and they have they also did in if you remember the last not the last operation, the 2 operation, like last operation was Guardian of the Walls, and they also save many lives of people during this operation. These guys are a citizen as I do, and they volunteer and they save lives, and some of them were died to protect the families from my moshav, and that's the insane that we felt unsafe because the army didn't get right on time, and people had to take knives or guns on whatever they had to protect themselves. Some of them couldn't and died in their own home. Some of them were afraid to death, and some of them were basically, we all been terrified. There is one missing person, like 17 murdered from my moshav Netiv Asara, and also one is missing. We don't know. I know him as well, and we don't know where is he. We only hear that he was last seen in a bicycle riding, and his bicycle found, but his body or he himself, no, we don't know about him. The feelings is horrible. We feel it's coming, but since we had a few weeks before that, we saw the terrorists shooting to the sea because they are training. Hamas is training every single day. We hear it from our home as well, and we hear the bombs. We hear all kinds of bombs. It's scary as same. It's the same terror because we know that they are training to kill us. So it's ironic. It's so unbelievable, and we can literally hear from my house, my home, my town, from all around, so many noises that we know that something is going to happen. And then you already know all the noises that's possible. You kind of recognize to know which sound is rocket, which sound is a shooting gun, which sound is some terrorist that trying to scare us. It's all around us, and it was kind of expected. I can say that 2 days ago I told my mom that I don't believe that something will happen, but it's too quiet. So maybe something will happen, because a few weeks were so many tourists on the border doing some horrible noises and shooting and fire some so many tzmigim. I forgot to
Tires, car tires.
Yeah. And it's also made us to understand that the whole area is not quiet as we think. But this was never expected to be that big and horrible, and it's terrifying. And if you have any questions, I can try to answer.
Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Jacob,
Thank you.
You have a question. Go ahead.
Jacob Illeborg from Denmark, writing for The Independent. You're talking, it's a horror story, and it's very brave of you to share it. Do you feel let down, if you will, by the Israeli state and maybe even by the Israeli military? For you're talking about that you've seen them training, preparing for this, knowing they were coming to kill you, and still it took 6 hours for them to come to your rescue. Do you feel let down?
Okay, that's a great question, because I also asking that to myself. I feel that we weren't prepared. They prepared. I mean the Hamas terrorists prepared for this operation. I think more than 4 years. We had we still have a point of Hamas that seeing us for 24 hours, and because the last operation wasn't with Hamas, it was with Jihad Islamic, they didn't get it down. And why I mention it, because there were a sign on that point. It's a watching point. They see us each day, and there was a sign that says on my it's a threat on my moshav that says my name, the name of the moshav, and they were gonna do something horrible to us. I'm not sure how to explain it, and we weren't prepared. We didn't know it was expected. Like, if I was expected that, so I feel like the army weren't prepared to that, because it was 1,000 on the border in 1 day, in 1 hour. Everything shut down, the whole system shut down, and I don't complain about it. I feel so sorry that all the we have the all information, we have all the we have tanks, we have airplanes, we have a good information, we have, we always said that we have one of the greatest army in the world, and then we were not expect that in the right time. They catch us I think in our worst point, and that's why. And also, I don't complain. I only thank God. I believe God, and I think that it's a miracle that I'm right here talking with you. So I think that I don't complain to any of them. I think they did what they did, and they did their best. and we have so many questions to think about it after and to learn from all these mistakes as a country, as a community. Everybody needs to learn from these mistakes. After it's over, I wish it will finish as soon as possible, and in less people that getting hurt. And I hope that I answered your question, because I don't feel angry about the army. I don't feel angry about our soldier. They are heroes to me. We also have we knew that there is another attack in other places that's probably worse than our case in my moshav. So we understand, and we knew that people are kidnapped, people were taken in their own houses and kept. Some of them alive, some of them are not. We still don't know the whole picture. So yeah, I'm hoping I did answer.
Thank you very much.
You certainly
Thank you.
did. And we have a last question from La Express. France, please. Unmute yourself.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes.
I just want to tell you, I'm afraid it's going to be the last question because people are asking to run to their deadline. So please go ahead.
Yeah, obviously. Well, thank you for sharing your story. I'm just wondering if after this horrible day you plan to move, or do you want to stay in your home? And do you know what the next day, your next days are going to look like? Thank you.
Okay, first, thank you for the question. It's also how do we overcome after it? How do we get to be in our home? Like, I wanted to escape my own home. That's the feeling. I never felt that like my home is my safe place, and then it's never been like that you want to escape. And I feel like a lot of people have this question on their mind. I don't think we have the answer. Still terrifying of thinking about losses and the whole situation that we don't want to right now decide something. Like, there are a lot of people that asking this question, and we as a community, we are very strong. We have been in the worst cases, as I told, I mentioned earlier, in Guardian of the Walls operation, we had איך אומרים נ"ט בעברית, באנגלית?
Anti-tank missiles.
So we had thank you, anti-tank for an army jeep, and there was a lot of engineer and injured, sorry, and one of them were died, and it was shocking for my moshav. And since then we knew to understand how powerful our community is and how powerful, and we overcome so many things. But now we have the question in our mind if we can overcome as well. So I still don't know what will happen. I feel like this war will gonna be a very long one. I hope it will be, because there are so many people that kidnap, so many people that getting hurt, so many people that killed and murdered. And I feel like Israel should do whatever they need. If it's to occupy Gaza, I feel they need to do it. That's what I think. That's what I believe. And I don't feel ashamed to talk about it, because people, I have one sentence that I want to share with you that I always tell to other people. If Israel will take off the gun, will never be Israel. If Gaza will take off the gun, will be peace. And we saw in the last day what they can do. And we see so many TikToks and horrible videos of Israelis, of Jewish people, of innocent people, of some workers that came to work in Israel and they get kidnapped. And we are facing in front of death. We are facing in front of people they are. I actually can't even. They are terrorists that praying to God to give them. Wow, I'm sorry, but we are facing in front of them, and that's what I really think that we are having very struggle with, because we as a country and as a Jewish people believe in believe in human rights, believe in democracy. We are saving life, and we are trying to do everything to make people feel as well, and our enemy is not like that. I'm sorry, that's it.
Tal, you need to unmute yourself, my friend. Tal.
I'm sorry. Just, people are texting me in the WhatsApp group asking if you can repeat the sentence you said you believe in.
I believe
that you said something about that if Israel will withdraw its weapon, and if Hamas withdraw, some people wants to accurately quote you. So
okay, so I said that there is a sentence that said if Israel would take off the gun, will never be Israel anymore. But if Palestinian will take off the gun, will be peace. That's it.
Thank you. Very hard things to say.
Thank you for listening.
I'm talking only for myself, but I have a clue that not only for myself. You're all heroes, and really, just a big hug. And we really encourage you to have better days and nights, better life. You deserve it.
I pray for God as well, and I hope we will end this war as soon as possible with less and less people injured.
We all hope for. We all pray for the injuries, and our hearts with the family of the casualties, with the victims, and of course we are praying for the health of and soon return of the hostages. More than 100 kids, women, elderly people, and men. I just don't want to end and conclude without trying at least once more with Gitit, so she will be able to give you the contacts. Gitit, can you hear us now?
Yes, I send the chat is my number and my mobile phone, and we have a lot of. It's a tough day. We have a lot of problem now. We have a lot of siren now, and a lot of rocket, and we need to breathe because it's a long time. It takes a long time, I think, and we have a lot of civilians. If you want to make שיתוף פעולה,
cooperation and interview,
you can call me, and we have a lot of civilians like Yael, like Niria, like Adele, and we have a lot of story if you want to talk with us.
Thank you so much, Gitit, and Yael and Neria and Adele, for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Please pay attention to the chat. There is a Gitit mobile phone. Of course, we are all here for you, as you know, for any other information we can assist with. I would like to thank you all for taking the time on a Sunday evening. We know it's not usual, but as we say, the situation here is not normal, so we really appreciate your attention. I would like also to thank my colleagues from Brussels, Alex, Yossi, and Ruth, David, Katya, and Oliver, and here in Israel, Tamar from my team, who did a great job. We thank you so much, and unfortunately, I cannot tell you that it's going to be much better in the next few days, but we hope for the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Thank you to those witnesses for the very, very powerful testimony. I will be sending a video of this briefing as soon as it's been compressed and ready to be sent. And obviously, as Vice Chairman of the European Jewish Association, as and when the situation evolves, we will, of course, keep you fully briefed. To all our friends in Israel, we wish you nothing but peace and health. And for the journalists, thank you for your time this evening. It's important that you heard their voices. So have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at another briefing very, very soon. Good night.
Good night.